I chose Jackson Elementary as my field site because I remember when I attended Jackson Elementary School, I was confident there would be other kids just like me. Turned out I was one of the only three Kurdish students and the other two being my sisters. That was a scary experience right then and there. That leads us to the question, how can we address different cultures in our classrooms when there are so many just within one school? What are ways we can make our students feel comfortable in our classrooms? One of the main questions I have noticed being asked this semester in Introduction to Multicultural Education is, do we teach our white students about different cultures, and how can we find ways to make them feel like they can relate to the topic as well? When I went to Miss Finley's class one day, I noticed one of her students was really upset. I asked Miss Finley what was going on and she said her mom misses her back home in Japan and she came here only with her dad. I talked to the student about it and she said, I love it here. I've made so many friends, but I miss my mom and my sister. My dad won't let me go back home because the school there isn't like the school in America. My dad wants me to have a good education and go to college. The photo of the guy in the airport as a representation that people leave their homes to settle in a different country for more opportunities and a better education. That reminded me that it's so much more different to get to know your students on a deeper level and see what's going on rather than just assuming elsewise. It's important to understand the way our students feel and make them feel safe to talk about things at school. It's such a huge challenge to have to leave your home and live somewhere else for a better education, career opportunities, and for better freedom. The second picture is a background. We all come from different cultures and backgrounds. We need to all learn about our students and get to know them better. In our book that we read in class, Reclaiming the Multicultural Roots of U.S. Curriculum, in Chapter 3 it discusses how parents are very concerned that their kids will forget their native languages because they are constantly learning English. This is a huge concern for parents because it can be a struggle to try and balance two languages and want what's best for your kids. Creating lessons plans where students get to talk and represent their culture is a great way to make students feel like they can express themselves for who they are, and Miss Finley had posters up of each student writing their name and a sentence in their native language. That's a great way for students to feel like they can show their individuality at school. One of the best ways to make a school feel like a community is by addressing different cultures. Jackson Elementary holds a day called Multicultural Day, where students bring different dishes from back home, and they also wear clothes that represent their culture, and they have little parties within their classroom. The principal speaks English and Spanish, and she holds an assembly where she discusses different cultures and translates it in English and in Spanish. This picture that I put on my slide represents the different types of foods that I ate when I was back in Kurdistan. Some of the fruits and vegetables that we made on the plates represented our flags for Kurdistan. The second photo is a poster representing different materials that we use in schools and bringing us all together as a community. Week 7, we had an article that said, what is on your classroom wall? The classroom invoked the trouble common metaphor of walking in two worlds, and that implied to Chris himself that he only had two life choices, to remain totally Indian and traditional or become totally white, assimilate. That's not very fair to go ahead and put a stereotype up on the wall because that's going to offend many students. When we go ahead and put posters on our walls, we really have to think if it represents our students and if it makes them feel comfortable. Having students even create their own posters would be a lot better because they feel like they can put their input in as well. Although Jackson Elementary really does try to represent different types of cultures, I think it's really important to involve parents and find a way to go ahead and cross that language barrier. I noticed that Miss Finley told me her students who have Somalian parents and don't speak English don't come to the parent-teacher conferences and back-to-school nights because they feel like they can't talk to her. So my idea that I represented to her was having different translators for those nights and having those translators translate for parent-teacher conferences and back-to-school nights so that the parents really feel connected with their child's education. This picture represents building in that tie where teachers and parents can talk together even if there is that language barrier, finding a way to communicate. I think communication is really important, especially if it has to do with a child's education. Overall, I had a really great experience at Jackson Elementary School, and I learned so many new things about different cultures and backgrounds, and I learned that Jackson Elementary really does truly care to show different cultures and represent them in different ways.